Welcome back to Sustainability at Work. Today's episode takes you on an extraordinary journey into a sustainable solution that defies expectations. Picture this. It's not flashy, it costs very little, yet it can double in size every 60 days. This solution has weathered not one, but two mass extinctions, flown not one, not two, but 5 hearths, and believe it or not, earned the admiration of Cleopatra and Charles Darwin. Curious? I know I am. But here is the kicker. This isn't your typical sustainability talk. It's a journey into the mysterious and awe-inspiring world of a solution that has silently shaped our environment and soil for centuries. Now imagine bringing this marvel to the heart of urban areas, your home, your office, and witness how it has the power to bring communities together. So let's dive into the fascinating world of wriggling wonders with Anna de la Vega and the urban worm. Sustainability at Work is a podcast about sustainability in the workplace and in companies. My name is Samara and I've been working with sustainability for almost 10 years. Welcome everybody. Welcome Anna. Thank you for being here at Sustainability at Work. I'm very excited because this time we're going to talk about a very special topic and it's worms. And I'm excited because when I met Anna, I was working in Nopla and I thought that Nopla was the only company having worms in the office. And it's not so because I know Anna brought worms into the military sites, into penitentiary sites. So this is a huge topic that you still don't know about, and it's going to be very interesting. So Anna, you write on your website that worms are more powerful than the African elephant and more important to the economy than the cow, which is a quote by Charles Darwin.
It is.
And also you write that Cleopatra was the first worshipper of worms and she declared them sacred.
True story.
Why are worms so important?
Why are they so important? Oh, where do we start? Well, the soil. The worms make soil. 95% of our food comes from the soil. They're pretty important. And obviously they aid with water retention, drainage. They're vital. Healthy soil is vital on worms. Well, worms are an indicator of healthy soil, but sadly, our soils have been destroyed through the use of synthetic fertilizer and industrial farming, and also the nutrient loss that we're seeing as well. So just for example, in the UK, in 70 years, a carrot has lost 70% nutrients. So across the board, we're just not getting the things that we need from our food. But worm poo has all the nutrients. So worm poo or worm manure or worm castings, also known as worm castings, contains all 40 nutrients that plants need. So there's a solution to completely eradicate the need for synthetic fertilizers. We just need to feed the worms. And they're great waste managers as well. So they can eat up to half their body weight a day. So all the organic waste that we're sending to landfill, which releases methane and nitrous oxide, we can convert this into quality poo.
I say there is a lot to unpack in what you say for people who don't know so much. So what is this problem about soil insecurity? And for example, you say in your website that the UK has only 40 years of good soil.
So I think we've been saying that for a long time now. So yes, we're in a serious situation. We're over-fertilizing our land we're dependent on synthetic fertilizers. So obviously this leaches into our waterways, which causes eutrophication, which kills aquatic life. So this is a key problem. And obviously the plants aren't getting the nutrients that we need. We're obsessed with NPK, but there's, plants need more than that. So we need to change the way that we farm and feed our soil. Instead of just feeding the plant, that's what synthetic fertilizers do. We need to fertilize the soil. And obviously we're seeing, I think, is it two in one have got cancer in the UK, obesity in the UK, I think it's 1 in 3. So we have some serious health issues, and our nutrients come from the soil. So if they don't have any, we don't have any. So it's
And maybe
a health issue.
less related to the worms, but I've seen, I think it was a blog on your website that was saying about hydroponic
Hydroponic farming. Yes.
farming. And sometimes people, I got very excited with hydroponic farming. But then you maybe don't realize that the food is the same, looks the same, maybe also tastes the same, maybe. But then the nutritional value could be totally different, which is what happens in these years already without the hydroponic farming. And so these things are sometimes difficult to understand because they're not visible.
Absolutely.
Maybe you don't taste it, but it's quite a difference.
And there was a big hype about hydroponics, but it uses the same chemicals. It's not organic, it's not a solution, and food needs to be grown in the soil as well. It's very expensive. And lots of hydroponic businesses went out of business because you have to pack for the energy and the lights, and the sun gives us life. So it's not really a solution, but yes, it's not the answer. It's definitely not the answer. But there's also something called vermiponics, which a guy I can't remember his name, in Australia coined the term. So it's using the nutrients from a worm farm as alternative. So that's quite an exciting area for potential development. I mean, I'd like food to be grown in the soil, but in instances where we can't maybe do that, or on a small scale in urban environments, we can look at worms for that as well. So vermiponics.
Okay, so I guess,
and obviously vermi is Latin for worm, so the academic term for worm farming is vermiculture.
Okay, perfect. So I think it's the right moment to understand what it is exactly and how does it look like, because this is your solution. You're advocating for this as one of the solutions, and you're bringing it even to urban environment, which is the name actually of your company, the Urban Worm, and offices. So how is that possible? Because when I think about worm farming, I imagine like huge extension or I don't know, something dirty. How does it look like instead?
Well, anything can be a worm farm. It can be done on a really small scale. You can have a worm farm in a 20-litre bucket. So it's perfect for people that don't have access to gardens. Not people in the urban environment don't have access to ability to compost. So the urban worm was born in the city. I don't live in the city anymore, but I did used to live in the city. So I wanted to create solutions for my urban residents. And you don't need a garden, so you can do it indoors in your kitchen. It doesn't smell. Obviously, over on a small scale, you probably won't be able to manage all of your waste in your mini worm farm, but every little bit counts. So, and as well, it gives people hope and makes us feel good. You feel helpless, don't you, when you can't. You feel like you're getting all the horrendous news and a lot of fear-driven. So this can, I think it's a lot of therapy. It provides a avenue for therapy as well. It does for me anyway. So yes, you don't need a lot. All worms need is oxygen and drainage, and obviously a supply of organic waste. So they'll eat your kitchen waste, tea bags, cardboard, anything that's organic, the worms will eat it. Apart from they don't like acidic foods. So if you keep your citrus and your onions out of there, they'll be pretty happy. They'll even eat dog waste, human waste. Oxfam have tiger worm toilets in refugee camps. So all around the world, this has been used as a solution for managing abattoir waste, biosolids. It's a big thing around the world, but not so much in Europe, or particularly not in the UK. So, but it is happening.
Okay. So what do you get in returns of this symbiotic collaboration, I would say, because it's not only soil. Well, I heard about tea.
Tea, also, yes, of course, you can make yourself your worm tea. So what people actually think, a lot of hype around worm farms is about the worm wee. We call it worm wee. It's not worm wee. The leachate that comes out of a worm farm. And this is a bit of a contentious issue within worm farming. There's people that say, no, you should never use the leachate that comes out of your worm farm because it could have bad bacteria in it. And then if you're putting that on your plants, then you're going to cause some problems. But worm tea is where you brew some worm manure in a watering can or in a bucket, give it stir, because as long as it's got oxygenate it. And then you can feed that to your plants, and the nutrients, so actually it's the microbes are in the water, and then we're feeding the microbes to our plants, because it's actually microbe poo, which we're working with as well. They provide all the nutrients. So you get your compost, well, worm manure, worm poo, and your worm tea as well. So you can create a liquid fertilizer for that, and a foliar spray, so you can spray it on your plants as well. So and you can't scorch your plant, you can't overdo it. So you only really need the research shows that you need about 10%, 10-20% is ultimate. But you can use 100% and it won't scorch your plants. You can never overdo it. It's a stable product.
Okay. So how do you get to this business? What
How
is
did
your
I get
story?
here? Yes. So I actually started my career as a photojournalist.
Okay.
Yes, maybe a bit naive and idealistic about, well, I'll just show everyone the problems, and but then I soon realized that actually the media are corrupt and funded by those with financial invested interests. So which I discovered after writing my thesis on truth. So I thought maybe it's probably not the best career move. But in the meantime, I actually took an internship with the Kathmandu Post while I decided what to do next. So I took an internship at the Kathmandu Post in Nepal, but that didn't actually work out. So I left and worked with a charity called Practical Action, which was founded by a guy called Ernest Fritz Schumacher, who is really the founder of the green movement in the UK. He wrote a book called Small is Beautiful, Economics as if People mattered, and that really it had a big impact on me, that book. So I went to work with Practical Action, and I travelled with them through the western region of Nepal, seeing how what Ernest Fritz Schumacher coined appropriate technology, low-tech, accessible technology that we can control, as opposed to big tech, which is the way things are, going at the moment. We're told that all these solutions are, electrification, and there's huge problems with EV vehicles as well. It doesn't really get much press. And worm farming is a low-tech appropriate technology. It's accessible to everyone. It's very low. It's low cost. So it was being with Practical Action, and then I wanted to come back, actually retrain. So I wanted to start working in the industry. So I came back and studied human security, studied a master's in human security and environmental change, but I specialised in food and urban agriculture. So then again, I had another great awakening to the nefarious industry, the industrial agriculture industry. And it was about justice, really, learning about the manipulation of farmers through these companies using religious iconography, and the horrible treadmill that farmers are stuck on with these inputs, and they're sold fertilizers and seeds it was justice, and I was very angry. So I'm like, right, how can we take some money away from these guys? So after I graduated, and I was introduced to worm farming while I was studying, as a solution that's being used around the world. So I started the urban worm. And that's the beginning. And then since then, I've been living off what grants. We're okay now, but for the past 10 years, it's really been hand to mouth and accessing grants where we can, because people don't really know about this. So it's not like selling socks. Had to sell a whole new concept to people. Really, it's not very well known in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's where it started. I'm a big advocate of low-tech technology. I think big tech is what got us into this problem, and it is not the solution. We can't control it. Who has access to data? Who has access to these? Who controls these things? So worm farming is low-tech and accessible to everyone, and that's what we want.
Yeah, in an area where we are all looking at solutions from the big tech.
Yes,
difficult conversation.
It's just carbon sequestration machines.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first one.
It's just bonkers. It's just bonkers, and there's a lot of investment, and there's a lot of money in this industry that's being pushed on us, and especially with electric vehicles. I don't believe this is not a solution when there's injustice and exploitation, and in the Congo, the mining of lithium batteries, it's like slave labor, and we may feel good about ourselves and get a bit self-congratulatory for driving our electric vehicle, but that impacts somewhere else in the world. We're exporting our ecological damage. So yeah, I have issues with electric vehicles. I don't think that's, especially when we see that they're being charged by diesel generators. It seems a bit silly.
Them are.
So it's not a solution when the environment is being degraded and there's injustice in the labor market.
So I have a sense that this solution has brought you everywhere in the world, because when I contact you, you were coming back from Italy. Then you have not everywhere in the world, just geographically, but also in places where I would not think that maybe a worm farm would exist, like the military sites, as I said at the beginning, or the penitentiary system. Can you tell us a little bit about this experiment and what you have seen about how this technology is developing all over
around the world? Absolutely. So I was really fortunate in 2016. I was awarded a Winston Churchill Memorial Trust Travel Fellowship, which funds UK residents to travel anywhere in the world to research your thing. So if it makes the UK a better place, they will support it, and they took a chance on me. So that was really life-changing. So I traveled to Cuba and America for my Winston Churchill. So I visited prisons, universities, industrial worm farms, a zoo. They're even worm composting in Seattle Park Zoo, something like that. And then they were selling the worm compost as well in the shop. So it was very normalized in the US. It's pretty normal, very mainstream. But one particular project that really inspired me was Seattle Monroe Correctional Facility. They're worm composting all of their waste in the prison, and then they're supplying the local county council with organic fertilizer. So it's just wonderful. It's really beautiful. The inmates have meaningful activity, and obviously the residents aren't being sprayed with chemicals, and they're saving, obviously the council is saving money. So that was really great. And there's a great TED talk by the guy that runs the worm farm from the prison. It's called The Power of Sustainability. It's a TED talk. So that's very interesting if everyone wants to listen to that. So
we can link it in the show notes.
Yes, that will be. Yeah, it's a good one. So after being in the States, and I traveled to Cuba, and that was particularly interesting to me because with the breakdown of the Soviet Union, Cuba lost 80% of imports and exports overnight. So, and they weren't farming organically prior to that as well. So obviously they were getting 5 times the market price for sugarcane. So everyone was growing sugar. And it was a policy for residents they were encouraged to tear down mango trees and grow sugar. So when this did happen, they weren't in a very good situation. So another way people see when we think about organic urban agriculture, Cuba is a place that we look to, but they really had to do that because they didn't have access to resources anymore, because they were using twice the amount of chemical fertilizer per hectare compared to the US. So, and then that just stopped. So, but luckily a few years before the collapse, vermiculture was introduced into the country. So actually it was by the Philippines actually introduced that to Cuba, luckily, and they're huge on the worms. I'll talk about that in a minute. So yeah, I went there, but actually it wasn't the story I was looking for, because actually they've gone back and they are using synthetic fertilizer again. So it wasn't quite the story I was going for. I did visit worm farms. It's happening on a small scale, but and they're still not using chemical fertilizers in the urban environment, but within agriculture, they have gone back to using synthetic fertilizer. So interesting.
Fun story about that. I don't want to interrupt, but when I was in Cuba, they taught me that when you have red snails, the red ones, the snails, which was a problem for me in Italy in my garden. You can put a plate with beer, and they would all come to the beer, and then you can bring them to another place where it's not like your vegetable garden. And it was such a simple solution that just solved all my problems.
Absolutely. There are simple solutions. We don't need chemicals for everything. So yeah, they're pretty good with their low-tech solutions because they had to be. But yes, I mean, from the collapse and up to 1994, there was like 179 worm farms. So they'd really upscaled rapid. They taught people how to worm farm on TV, taught people how to garden on TV. It was an easy way to mass educate people. But something happened, and as it does. So that's not quite the story anymore. But that's why I went there. So, but I saw it was amazing on small scales. I visited a 24-meter squared rabbit farm that was attached to somebody's apartment, and they were keeping worm farms underneath the cages of the rabbit cages. So the rabbit poo was going straight into the worm farm, and it was, there was no smell, and it was clean. It was a way that they could do that while living next door. It was eliminating the smell and cleaning the waste. There are good things, but it wasn't the story I was looking for. But yes, I've been very lucky to travel a lot.
And then the Philippines, right?
Where the Philippines, yes. So they're huge. You would never. People don't really think about the Philippines for worm farming, but the government provide huge support for worm farmers. So, and it's actually policy, if you're going to grow organically in the Philippines, that worm farming is integrated into your system. They train farmers how to farm worms, and then they buy the worm manure from them, and then they give it them back for free. So they're quite serious about this. And, the Philippines have been destroyed ecologically through the aggressive industry, the GM, and it's awful. But now, things are being repaired. So it's really interesting what is happening there. So there was one company, Carry-On Farms. I think they've actually been closed down now because they were mixing 50%. They weren't providing a pure product to the government. But in 1 year, they'd bought 30,000 50-kilo bags of worm manure that they then distribute to farmers as well. So they're quite serious about it.
Yeah. So what about Europe?
Europe, so we've got a bit lagging behind actually, but the what's going on in Europe? So Austria, I've been to Austria. There's a company called Vermigrand, and he's using a continuous flow through system, and he's supplying garden centres. And in Italy, there's the companies, I forget their name because I was in. There is somebody in Italy that's actually doing it now, which I've discovered. But Holland are really interesting to look at, actually. So I was in Holland, when was it? This year, beginning of this year. I actually went to Micropia, which is the world's only microbe museum in Amsterdam, if anyone is interested. Best museum I've ever been to in my life. Highly recommend. Even if you're not into microbes or these things, it's still very interesting. But while I was there, I connected with Ari from Worm Hotel. Worm Hotels, and these are the coolest things ever. So there are 2,000 of these worm hotels dotted around the Netherlands, and they are beautiful structures in the street that are for community use. So a resident has to apply. So you need 5 signatories from your local neighborhood, and then you can have a beautiful worm hotel installed in your neighborhood. And it's amazing. It's really amazing. And this is all funded by the government. So pretty impressive. I mean, what's going on with the farmers in the Netherlands is, I think it's quite unjust, and that's another thing. But in terms of providing and bringing worms to the people, and I think the Netherlands are actually the second largest, the second largest agricultural exporters. They do it a bit intensively. It's a problem, but worms, they are the largest exporters of earthworms in the world. So but yeah, worm hotels, check them out. They are beautiful, and worm farms should be beautiful. So yes, I'm very impressed with those. And it's community cohesion as well. That was the thing that they found, was that beyond the ecological benefit was it brought communities together. It brings people together
Yeah,
to make
exactly.
soil
That
in the
was one of
city.
my questions, because there's a big community element to what you're doing.
Yes.
So it's not only like beneficial for individual, that you say it's like almost mindfulness, but for community also. It's
yes, absolutely. So yeah, we've set up 2 community composting projects with some funding from the National Lottery. One was in partnership with a mosque and a Steiner school in Nottingham City, and another at a social eating cafe. We're actually having people bring in their waste from home as well. So we gave people kitchen caddies, and they were bringing in to produce compost, and obviously they're using the food from the community cafe to feed the worms as well. So there's lots of opportunities, and I think community composting, community worm farming have a huge potential to play in bringing people together. Yeah, a lot of people are very isolated, and this is it's a great conversation starter as well.
Yeah.
Do you have worms? And, if you're a bit socially awkward and you know what to say, it's always a good one to start on.
That's really nice.
Good stuff.
So what is the future for your activity, and what is the future that you see for the industry, where you would like to see it?
Farmers, it's education of farmers really, and it's great. In the past year I've been working with farmers, which is brilliant, because they just don't know, and if nobody told you, you don't know. So I think that's a key thing, is educating our farmers. They have everything they need on farm to produce worm manure. So farmers, and particularly property developers as well. I want to start working with property developers. They need to start paying for the soil that they're taking out of the earth. I read actually the other day that in the UK, 28 million tons of soil is dumped in landfill from urban environments.
We have a soil insecurity.
Exactly, and we're sending it to landfill. It's just crazy. So yeah, looking at how businesses and industries can integrate this into their practice. But we're seeing people are getting on board now. I've got shopping centres, Westfield Shopping Centre in Shepherd's Bush, London. They have worm farms. A MacArthur Glen Designer Shopping Outlet Centre in Birmingham. And we see the military sites that we have 3 of those. So, offices, people have worm farms in their offices. So yeah, I think it's for everyone. There's a lot of work to be done, but yeah, I'll continue working with farmers. And the great thing with the farming community is, once you tell a small group of farmers, the word will get out. So that's the main thing really, is that our farmers understand this very accessible, low cost process. We don't need big machines.
I've seen that, maybe not the best for the worms, but I've seen that there are some studies also where the worms are able also to kind of regenerate soil that has been
absolutely contaminated. So the term is vermiremediation. There's loads of research. I think if you put vermiremediation in Google Scholar now, there's like 4,000 papers. So they clean contaminated land. Whatever passes through a worm becomes clean. So PCBs, DDTs, oil spillages, there's plenty of research on there now. So they're pretty special. They are the Earth's cleaners. They clean everything for us. So it's regeneration. It's a beautiful story, from waste to wealth. They can do that for us, and we've really not been good to our soil, but it's not over. I think there's a lot of fear surrounding, the soil's dead and we need to eat this food, synthetic food, as a solution. But no, we just need to look after our soil. But it can be repaired. Everything can be repaired. I believe everything can be repaired. So I think that message needs to go out to the global community, because we have a lot of fear, and children are coming home from school and very scared about the health of their world. And there doesn't need to be that this fear. It's not a way to take people with us. We need to empower people, even on a small scale. And if you can make some soil, which is a carbon sponge, in your kitchen, it's the way forward. It's every little bit counts.
I agree. I think this is a powerful place where to stop. But I really fell in love with your solution, because it's something that gives a lot of hope. You have a sense of doing something that is useful, and then you can apply then on a chain of beautiful things.
Exactly.
And yeah, it brings together also the communities. It's fun. It's also I
It's very
used
fun.
to love to look at our worms every day in the Napla office. So just open the window, have a look. Are they fine? Move a little bit of soil.
Exactly.
Fine. Give them some fruit and things.
A lifetime of joy. They will bring you a lifetime of joy. They're very special. They don't get much PR. Like the worms, they're not as sexy as not the worms as the bees, not as sexy as the bees, but
True.
yeah, I'm trying my best.
As you say in your website, they have 8 hearts.
5
hearts.
5 hearts.
To love you.
Yes, they do. So,
that's wonderful.
They are wonderful. And if you cut a worm in half, it will not become 2 worms, just to clarify that myth. It's a half truth. If the tail gets snipped off, they can regenerate themselves, but if they get cut off too close to the saddle, which is the band, and that's when you know that a worm is an adult as well, when you see that band. But yeah, if you cut it too close to the saddle, it will die. So just
don't do that.
Just don't do that.
Love them. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you
so much for having me. It
was great. I think it's going to be a very powerful episode that nobody expects and nobody knows much about. So I'm really happy that I was able to have you here.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.